Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching us. Well, Pennsylvania is a big energy state, and we're going to talk about energy opportunity and more. But first, Tom Lehman, the Capitol reporter for WGAL, is my guest, and when we have Lehman on, you know we're going to talk about the Capitol and politics in the state of Pennsylvania after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, here we go with the show. All right, Tom Lehman, Capitol reporter, as I indicated, with WGAL TV. All right, when we talk about Pennsylvania, it is one of the 4 or 5 critical battleground states. And the candidates have been traversing the state, campaigning here. I'm talking right now about presidential candidates. That would be a guy named Donald J. Trump, right, and another guy named Joe Biden, who was born in Scranton and still, I think of, calls Pennsylvania his home state, even though he was born in the state of Delaware.
Well, no, I believe he's born in Pennsylvania, but you are correct.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
he was born and moved to Delaware when he was 10.
Right.
Thank
and I think, the thing about Joe Biden is I think everybody, especially somebody who grew up in Delaware, identifies Joe as a Delawarean, but you're correct. He is a native Pennsylvanian, and because of that, he's always had this affinity for Pennsylvania, and we sort of saw that on display this past weekend when Joe Biden, President of the United States, who's fighting for his re-election, came to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to make a campaign stop. He had been in Philadelphia earlier in the day, making an appearance at a church there, but he came to Harrisburg, which the city itself, highly Democratic, but those suburbs outside of the city sort of reflect one of those major battlegrounds right now. And so obviously he wants to try and show voters out there, hey, I care about you guys. I want your vote. And more importantly, this coming after the debate, I think he wanted to make an appearance in front of supporters and other people in the community to try and convince them, hey, listen, I am still the nominee. I'm the guy who's going to beat Donald Trump.
Well, Scranton moved to Delaware when he was 10. His family was in the Scranton area. And during his years in the United States Senate and when he's been a candidate for the presidency before, he traversed the state regularly, literally calling it on occasion his home state because of his birth. And so Pennsylvania remains one of the critical battleground states.
Sure. And listen, there's a few of them, but Pennsylvania, I think especially, because of how it is very much a purple state in many ways. You look at the voter registration, sure, Democratic advantage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for a while we were seeing some statewide get elected Republican. We've seen Republican support, particularly at the legislative level in some cases. The state Senate is in control of Republicans. But the point, I guess, is that, by coming to Pennsylvania, President Biden's really trying to say, listen, I care about this state. I need your support in order to win because he needs those electoral votes. Ultimately, it's not about the popular vote as to who gets elected president. It's about who gets elected through the Electoral College. And I think...
Well, he likes to say that I'm one of you. And when he was a U.S. Senator from Delaware, he traversed this state, literally, regularly. I mean, you would have thought he was representing Pennsylvania. I think he had to be careful how he put that because obviously he wasn't the senator from Pennsylvania.
Sure, and I think when you look at this most recent visit, goes to an AFSCME council headquarters, stops by a Harrisburg coffee shop. A lot of these places, this is an attempt to try and appeal to voters, to show people that he is, a regular Joe, if you will.
A regular Joe.
Right. You also look at who brought him around. Harrisburg Mayor Wanda Williams, Governor Josh Shapiro joined him for part of the trip. This is an attempt to show that Democrats are still supporting him, despite that debate performance, and despite some of the questions that have been lingering about him for years now.
Yeah, well, let's run to a break and we come back. I want to talk about the debate, but I also want to get to Pennsylvania's budget. We have a surplus, and it still has not been adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor, which, you know, that normally happens when we have a deficit, not when we have a surplus, right?
Sure, sure.
All right, we'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, Tom Lehman, we are in the middle of July. I think I got that correct.
Yep.
And the budget still has not been adopted, the state budget. And the fact of the matter is that often happens when there's a deficit, when the legislature is debating raising taxes.
Yep.
And that's not the issue right now. Why can't the legislature get a budget done?
You know, that's the big question on, I think, a lot of people's mind right now. As we are speaking right now, when we're taping this, there is no budget in place. A lot of the bills that have to get passed alongside the budget are not in place either.
Yeah.
And the big question right now is what's taking so long? The big debate, if you will, like the area of disagreement, because we keep hearing from both sides, well, we're getting there. Talks are progressing, you know, and that's typical of these things.
But they're talking about spending money, not taxing.
Right, and the question is, what are we going to do with education spending? And the big question is, yes, you have a surplus. You want to try to use some of that money. If you're, you know, Governor Josh Shapiro, for instance, he proposed using quite a lot of that money, not all of it. He has very clearly said many times we're not spending the whole surplus.
Has he made a lot of public statements about the budget? He's made a couple, but I didn't think.
Since his budget address, he's made it's not campaign stops, but he has advocated for his budget on a number of occasions, touring the state, if you will, not a political campaign, an official campaign, if you will. But the point that I'm getting at is he's made comments and made appearances to support the budget, but in recent weeks he's gotten a little quieter about it. Obviously, he still wants to see it pass. He still supports the things that he proposed. But
the bills are being paid?
Well, the bills are certainly still being paid. State employees are still being paid as well. I think the big question, you know, is what happens if lawmakers throw their hands up in the air and say, you know what, we're going to go break for the RNC. We're going to go break for the summer.
Summer, right.
If we get to the fall, you're going to start to see the effects of not passing some of these measures.
Budget,
payments that go to schools, counties.
And that will create controversy as well as competitiveness.
Well, it will add a little bit of heat for sure, especially if they don't have these things passed and people start pointing fingers ahead of an election. But I think, you know, there's things that they have to work out, especially when it comes to the amount of money that they're going to spend on education and the new way that they're going to divvy up the dollars and send them out to individual school districts. That's one of the key sticking points right now. That's one of the reasons they haven't gotten a final product on the table yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you, and you have an assignment to come back and report when they get something done on the budget. All right. Pennsylvania is a huge energy-producing state. We're going to talk about energy opportunity as well as the electric grid reliability, and we'll do that in a moment.
This
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, I'll tell you something. Energy and Pennsylvania often appear in the same sentence for obvious reasons, but we're going to get into that with David Taylor. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Terry.
All right. In general, energy and PA go hand in hand. And, you know, some people are, you know, have concerns about the environment, and I understand that. But overall, when you look at our state, and particularly its past, look at the kind of energy that we produced over the course of, you know, back into the...
Right, more than a century.
More than a century.
Certainly Pennsylvania's long been a leader in energy with the first oil wells in Titusville. And certainly, you know, Pennsylvania coal powering our industry over the decades. But the current moment, the opportunity is driven by the discovery and development of the Marcellus Shale natural gas play and the Utica Shale underneath it. And actually, for people who are concerned about the environment, Pennsylvania has led the way. That not only has Pennsylvania reduced emissions by 44% since the Marcellus Shale was discovered and developed, but also that our natural gas, as it is produced in Pennsylvania, has the lowest negative impact on the environment of natural gas produced anywhere in the world.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, sir.
That's important. All right, so the other point that you're really making is that there's a huge opportunity for energy production in this state.
Well, there absolutely is, and it's something that we need our leaders to focus on, and I would hope that there would be a consensus that a pro-production agenda for domestic energy in Pennsylvania is the right policy, because when you are maximizing domestic production, you're satisfying consumers, you're driving down prices, and you're also creating more economic opportunities for all of those entities that consume energy, which is pretty much everybody.
So just go through briefly what are the major energy productions? Well,
so in Pennsylvania, we have a diverse fleet of electricity production. That we have natural gas-fired power plants, we have some remaining advanced clean coal power plants, and we also have a fleet of nuclear reactors. And between those three sources, that provides about 96% of Pennsylvania's electricity when the grid is being pushed, as it has been with you know, like in recent days with high temperatures.
And other parts of the country utilize our energy, correct?
Well, yeah, we are the #1 exporter of electricity in America, and that we power the grid, the PJM interconnection that we are a part of. And in fact, Pennsylvania exports as much electricity as California imports. Yeah. So we're not on the same grid. It doesn't go straight from us to them, but just in terms of volume, it's massive.
And we also have something that you refer to as, and I'll read it here, electric grid reliability.
Well, yeah, that's an ongoing...
Is that the whole point about...
That's the ongoing concern, is that we need to make sure that we have enough juice in the grid that we can meet everybody's needs all the time. And because we've had political tampering with our electricity generation sector, the buffer, the margin of safety in that grid has become less and less. And that's why we need to be concerned about making sure that we have enough production, and also making sure that we're not engaging in policy decisions that are going to put consumers and other users of electricity at greater risk.
Yeah. So how much opposition does this face in the state?
Well, I mean, it's a problem of people are captive to wishful thinking, that there are people who want to believe that, we can power our modern civilization with just, alternative energies like wind and solar power, and sadly, that's just simply not true. And so we've had those technologies are.
But we can have wind and solar, right?
Well, sure, for people who want to do that, for investors who want to go down that path, that certainly should be allowed. But it's a mistake for the politicians to insist that we must rely primarily on these technologies that are low yield, intermittent, and very expensive.
Yeah, and what I've always been struck with the fact that we've got geographically a lot of diversity in the state where this energy is produced.
Oh, well, sure, and that the Marcellus Shale play is essentially everything under the Allegheny Mountains and then north and west of it. That the Marcellus play in the far northeast of Pennsylvania, that the methane, the natural gas, comes out of the ground almost completely pure. And so that's why there's been a lot of investment in production up there. In the far southwest, down in Washington and Greene counties, that the methane, the natural gas, comes out of the ground with all kinds of other chemicals, ethane, butane, pentane, propane, and those are feedstocks for petrochemical manufacturing. And so that's why there's been a lot of production focused down there.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, how about this? The importance of electric grid reliability. I want to understand that after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
All right, David Taylor is my guest. He is the head of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. All right, electric grid. First of all, it's the first time I heard of electric and grid in the same two words.
Yeah, well, it's the world's biggest machine. It is the means by which electricity is delivered to all the consumers in Pennsylvania, whether that's residential or commercial or industrial, and it's what keeps the lights on. And the grid requires servicing, upgrading, but most importantly, it needs a constant supply of baseload power, meaning power that's there all the time, so that we as users of electricity can access it at all times. And when there's not enough electricity in the grid, that's when you get brownouts,
now, is
blackouts.
The grid regulated as a grid, or are they just regulated as individual industries?
Well, you have individual industries that contribute to the grid. The grid is managed by PJM Interconnection out of Valley Forge. That's the regulatory body that oversees the production and distribution of electricity. But I mean, it's critical to turn the lights on. For the viewers who are watching who've endured a storm that blew over trees, that knocked out your power lines, and you're in the dark for a certain number of hours. That this is, people remember what that experience is like. If we lose power, this is exceedingly dangerous, because it's not just for a temporary inconvenience. This is how we power our hospitals and our nursing homes and our police and fire stations, and this is a very serious thing. And as I mentioned earlier, that over time, because of political interference with investment decisions about energy and electricity production, that the buffer in the grid has become less and less. So there's less and less margin for error. And so it's a mistake for public policy to discriminate against baseload generation as opposed to intermittent generation. And again, with wind and solar, the wind does not always blow.
Right.
The sun does not always shine. The sun goes down at night. And so these things, if people choose them, that's great. But it is a profound mistake, a deeply dangerous mistake, to insist that the grid rely primarily upon those sources.
Yeah. There's another aspect of this, and that is the government's role and control of market competition. Do we have,
one of the things,
how would you describe that?
I mean, Terry, one of the things that Pennsylvania has gotten right is that we have a competitive market for electricity. This was one of the great accomplishments of the Ridge administration. It was, it took a long time and it was expensive, but
Talking
we got
about
there.
Tom Ridge, former governor.
Yes, and so before market competition, the Pennsylvania's electricity prices were about 20% above the national average, and today that we have electricity prices about 10% for industrial users, about 10% below the national average.
What's caused that?
Well, again, it's the
supply,
market competition, and producers competing based on price. And so this is the element that is at risk with the kinds of proposals that are being put forward by Governor Shapiro and legislative Democrats, that they want to eliminate the competitive marketplace. They want to have a 50% carve-out that electricity should be generated by sources of their choosing, several of which actually don't even exist yet, and that this would take our great strength using our native resources, coal and natural gas, and essentially suppressing their use. And it's just, again, we should allow the marketplace to work. We should allow people to make choices, and that this is how we'll get the best results with the most reliable, most affordable electricity for consumers.
Yeah. All right, one general question. How would you describe, if you had to describe the economy of the state, how would you describe it, well, given what you do?
Yeah, I mean, nationally, the manufacturing sector is in recession. That we're in contraction is a better word. So things in Pennsylvania are, stable for the moment, but not great. We should be doing a lot better. And again, as you've heard me say many times, Terry, that maximizing domestic energy production, lowering costs for consumers, that's the best opportunity that we have to increase economic activity.
Are you optimistic about the future or pessimistic?
Well, I've been at this for a while, Terry.
I know you have.
That, it's, you see what needs to be done, and the question becomes whether anybody has the vision and will to make it happen. I mean, Pennsylvania has a bright future if we claim it.
If we claim it.
If we claim it.
Yeah. And it seems to me that that's really critical.
Yeah, we need leaders who look to the horizon and also especially realize that the world does not stop at the 67 counties. We have to compete not just with our neighbor states, but with states all across the country.
All right, thanks for your significance. All right, thanks for watching us, and you all have a great day.